Good afternoon and welcome to the Borderlines debate. This maiden edition will be on the Middle East crisis, the yesterday, the today, and the path forward. For too long, voices from the global south have been left out of the conversation about the Middle East region. But October 7th changed that, especially with South Africa's filing against Israel at the ICJ. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. I am the host today, and I'm also the host of Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders, which is the weekly foreign affairs show on Nigeria Info 99.3. We are broadcasting live from our Abuja studios, so you can join us on 99.3 Nigeria Info FM, Lagos, 95.1 Nigeria Info FM, Abuja, 92.3 Nigeria Info FM, Port Harcourt, on Radio Now, 95.3 FM, Lagos, and on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM, Lagos. Like I said earlier, we are live from our Abuja TV studios. We are live on Plus TV Africa on DSTV 408 and Liberty TV on Star Times channel 180, Go TV 110, Free TV channel 775 and 601. Of course, you can also follow the conversation on Twitter and share your questions and comments with the hashtag B, that's B for ball, L for Lima, debate 2024. It's an absolute pleasure. I have with me on stage a distinguished panel. In addition to that, due to space restrictions, seated to my left is an exemplary group of subject matter experts. But first, I will introduce my panel. A couple of them are late, so you'll have to forgive them, might join during the break. But to my left, but certainly not the left, I have with me His Excellency, the former Minister of Aviation, Sadauki Chief FFK Fani Kayode. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also have with me the Palestinian Ambassador to Nigeria, His Excellency Mr. Abu Shawesh. Did I pronounce it right?
Yes, very well. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Now to my right, and I'm sure they didn't plan this. Did you? This wasn't planned, by the way, people, but they all seem to be wearing the same scarf. Amazing. They hadn't met up until today, but I have with me Professor Mukhtar Imam. I will be joined, of course, by Professor Anthony Killer, who is on his way. We were also supposed to be joined, and I think it's possible that they might turn up during the break, the representative of His Excellency Yoon Dubai, the Chinese ambassador to Nigeria. We are also expecting the representative of the Nigerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, because they had accepted the invitation and promised to send a representative. We have to acknowledge that this is an all-male panel. And we want to emphasize that this was not by our choice or through lack of effort on our part. We made significant efforts to include female panelists, especially given that women are deeply affected by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Although we couldn't secure female panelists for today's discussion, we're committed to amplifying them in the future discussions. We hope this conversation inspires broad and more female participation moving forward. Now, you may also have noticed that there is no Israeli participation. You may also have noticed that there is no Israeli participation. This is not due to lack of efforts from our parts, especially several exhaustive efforts, including postponing this important dialogue event not once, but twice, to accommodate His Excellency Michael Freeman, the Israeli ambassador to Nigeria. Unfortunately, the country representative of Israel is not on the panel today. In fact, my team continued to liaise with the Israeli embassy up until this very afternoon. We not only reserved seats for His Excellency on the panel, we also reserved 10 seats for members of the Jewish Israeli community in Nigeria. Now, time for some ground rules before we get started. The objective of this dialogue is to have a robust intellectual and fact-based debate. Each panelist, each speaker must be allowed to finish their comments. So kindly limit any interruptions or interjections so every speaker will get equal speaking time. Number 2, refrain, please, from any inflammatory or abusive language, though we of course recognize that this topic is a most passionate and emotive topic. Lastly, kindly raise your hand if you have any comments or questions. A mic will be brought to you when we get to the question and answer session. Thank you very much. Right, whilst I put my glasses on. Okay, let's start from the historic perspective, right? How do historical narratives shape the positions of both sides, and how do these interpretations influence the current conflict, especially in light of October 7th incident? I'll go to you, sir. Yes, Chief FFK. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank you for this, for being here. It's a wonderful panel. It's a strong panel, Your Excellency and the others, and members of the audience. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here today. I have to say that I'm very disappointed that His Excellency, the ambassador for the State of Israel, was not here. I was looking forward to setting a few things right with him in terms of what he's been saying in our country, but that's just one of those things. But let me get to the point. In answer to your question, let me say this. Everything that is going on in the Middle East today is shaped by the history of the world and the Middle East. Everything. And to understand it, you need to look at it from a historical perspective. Not just that, also a biblical perspective, because it's intertwined into so many things. Now, for me to go into all that, I would need about 45 minutes. So it would be difficult to do that. But what I will say is this, that the history is clear. Here you had a situation where there was a state of Israel 2,000 years ago, a great nation of great people, and eventually, for one reason or the other, they were scattered throughout the earth. As a consequence of a number of issues. Some would say as a consequence of God's judgment. Well, whatever you like to call it, they were no longer there 2,000 years ago. And they basically integrated throughout the world, specifically in Europe, where they flourished and did very well. Now, unfortunately, a number of years later, decades later, during the Second World War and before the Second World War, Nazi Germany killed, gassed, and butchered 6 million of them in what is known as the Holocaust. As a consequence of that, the Western powers who won the war and defeated Germany felt that it was important to find a place for them to return to because they had suffered so much persecution, not just in the hands of the Nazis, but in the hands of virtually all the Europeans and non-Europeans. Even in America, everywhere, people hated the Jews for a number of reasons, unjustifiably so. They control finance and so many things, but unjustifiably so, because there is no place for hate in this world. Now, they did the right and proper thing, and what was that? They decided to find a place for them to resettle and be reestablished. Now, this is where the problem now begins.
Okay.
I'm going to
give you an extra minute.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. The first choice, in actual fact, if you look at the historical records, was Uganda in Africa. By one vote, they lost. Those that wanted Uganda lost the vote, and the others said, "Okay, let us go to the old Israel and just put them there." The problem with that was this, and this is where the real problem starts. For 2,000 years, the Palestinian people had been living in that spot and had claimed it as their own. It was known as British Palestine. It was a British colony where the Palestinians flourished, and a very tiny minority of Jews lived there. But the Allies went ahead, as a consequence of the influence of the Rothschild family, Lord Balfour, and all of them, and imposed these people there.
Okay.
That is where the problem started. And of course, when you do that, you have to understand it would have been okay if everybody felt they could live in peace together. But in this situation, the intention of the Israelis right from the outset was to say, listen, this is our land historically. We are going to usurp the people that are there. We're going to terrorize them. We're going to destroy them. We're going to occupy their land, humiliate them. And that is what happened for the last 76 years. They started it in, let me just end with this. Sorry, my dear.
Go on.
They started with what they call the Nakba, which is very important, that word. Nakba. In 1948, I believe, where over 700,000 and almost 1 million Palestinians were slaughtered and driven from their homes. The land was occupied, and then there was a series of wars. And then, of course, the Palestinian Gaza and the West Bank, Gaza particularly, was turned into a massive concentration camp where people were treated like animals.
Okay.
And that is where the problem started.
Okay. Let me come to you, Professor Mukhtar. How do you think the history of the land, Israel, Palestine, and even the Jews, how do you think that history sort of shapes the perspectives on both sides, in your opinion? Well, and perhaps even your perspective, because you're an author, and you've written about this.
Yes, I have. Emphatically, just like His Excellency has mentioned, he has given us a synopsis of the entire thing that has played out throughout history, from the 2,000-year period up till the period of the Nakba, etc., etc. The reality is you can never rewrite the history of the Middle East, regardless of how, as the feminists would say, it is either history or his story. So it is either history or someone else's story. So regardless of what people try to do today to create a certain image of what they feel the world should swallow line, hook, and sinker of what Palestine is today, history has been there. Of course, I will add to what has been said about the historical facet of the Palestinian state, as it were, that what has led to, as a matter of fact, for over that period of 2,000 years, the Jews, the Christians, the Coptic Christians, by the way, which Palestine today is made up of 23% of, or was made up of before the butchery started. We do not know what number or percentage of Christians are currently in Palestine, but 23% of the entire population of Palestine were actually Christians, Coptic Christians, and you had the Jews who also lived there as well, and then, of course, you had the Muslims who lived there. So you will come to realize, when you look at all of this and sift through, that this isn't about religion. This is clearly out of it. The reality of it is this is geopolitics playing out. This is about the interest of Rothschild, like has been mentioned earlier. This is about the interest of the Zionists, led by Ben-Gurion, who felt the need to come and superimpose. This is about the interest of Lord Balfour when he declared the land of the Jews. Because if you recall in his memoir, he said that he was going to make Palestine as Jewish as England is English. Right? And so we see all of these things have played out throughout history. And then, of course, what unfolded from the days of Nakba, from 1948 up until this period. And all of these things have reinforced one another. And then, of course, the reason why this history has been kept, people have been kept aloof, is the reality of that is that the Jewish propaganda machinery has always been unparalleled. Right? And so it has always given that, and by the way, we must again clarify these, we must contextualize properly. There's a distinction between the Judaism, and of course, the current crop of Zionists who are taking over the land of Palestine, forcefully tagging themselves Israel and trying to rename the land Israel. This has to be clearly spelled out.
Okay. I need to.
Okay,
Yeah?
go ahead, please.
Okay. Your Excellency, I'm going to come to you. I came to you last, of course, on purpose, because you are, of course, representing Palestine. And for this, I would like you to talk to us about, your history, his history. Not so much the history that we've all read about, but the history as pertaining to you, the one you grew up with, of Palestine.
Thank you so much indeed, and all the protocol is absorbed. The issue is who did not know from where did he came, will not know where is he headed. This is very important. History is behind everything, but not like my distinguished brother, I will go more than deeper in the history. Before our father, Abram, before he became Abraham, came from Ur, the Chaldeans, or Iraq today, he came to the Palestine. And when you back to the Old Testimony, the Torah itself, Genesis, in Hebrew they call it Be'ad Hala. When you back to it, rightly mentioned there, Palestine. It's not only Palestine. In Genesis, in the Torah itself, our name is there. So that when Abram, before he became even, his name is Abraham, he came to Canaan land, Palestine. And the most significant and the very verses that is tackling this issue, in Hebrew I'm going to mention it because it's very important. V'yagar Abraham be'aretz Palestine yamim rabim. And Abraham sojourned in the land of Palestine many days. So that before he came even from Iraq, as an immigrant from Iraq, before it became even the promised land, it was called Palestine. We was there as a Palestinian, Canaanite, the land of Canaan. The name of Palestine, in its explicit name, not Palestine, Palestine, BH, is mentioned in the Torah, in the Old Testimony, 291 times. Canaanite, the land of Canaan, is 600 plus. I think 611 times, not one. So that this is the history. When they claim that they are the indigenous people, I'm sorry, we are the indigenous people as Palestinian, Canaanite, and the other. Then they came to Palestine.
Did you say Palestinian, Canadians?
Canaan, yes.
Yes, and?
Yes. Palestinian, I meant that Palestine, in its explicit name, Palestine, not Palestine.
Yes, of course.
Yes, you can back to the Genesis, to the Torah itself. It's there. It's not our issue. We did not create this. It's written there. 291 times. 291 times. Canaan, the land of Canaan, Canaanite, 611 times, something like this. So that even before Abraham became his name Abram, even before the first three promises that the God gave him in that Genesis itself, we were there. We were there as a Palestinian. So this is the history. Put aside what happened, I can go, or even 1100 years ago, 1100 years ago, the majority of the Jewish today, whom is converted to Judaism, this is very important. When I met the Jewish, there is three types of Jewish. Whom is descendant from the African, which is believers. By proselytism, they became a Jewish. The Khazarian Jew, and everyone can just Google it. You did not need a lot to pay a lot of effort. Google it, Khazarian Jew, whom is converted to the Judaism 1100 years ago, and the Arab Jewish, or the original Jewish, whom is still was there in Palestine, and part of them converted to Christianity, and part of them, the old Hebrews, the original Hebrews people, whom is not part of the biblical captivity, is still there in Palestine, is still there, and they are Muslim, and this is not our word. This is Ben Gurion, written in his diary, 1918, wrote it in his diary, the original Hebrews is still there in this land. So this is the history. We can go more, of course. We should go to shed light, of course, about what happened in Balfour Declaration, which is the pure, and this is not my word. This is Ilan Babeh, the Israeli historian word. It's
it's pure anti-Semitic declaration, because he wants to get rid of the Jews. This is Ilan Babi. This is not mine.
Right.
This is very important, because all of the time we should go to dig about the history. Just let me remind you that what did Antonio Guterres said in October 26th last year in the, before the Security Council, when he mentioned that October 7th was not come from a vacuum, did not happen from a vacuum. Indeed. This is very important. The problem that we are facing it today with the American, with the Western media, and many Western media, or the majority of the Western media.
Thank you. All right, thank you. As you can see, get ready, it's going to get very, very interesting and, of course, educating. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the Borderlines debate. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Right, he's here. Professor Anthony Killer. Welcome, Professor.
Good to be here. Or should I say salam alaikum and shalom?
Right, so just before you joined us, I spoke to your fellow panelists about the historic perspectives and how it shapes both sides. But because you're here, I would like you to just touch on that, but even more so, talk about how the attack and the aftermath changed the current landscape of Israel-Palestine. By that, I mean October 7th attack.
Well, I think the issue of Israel-Palestine is something that has a very long thread. And it is always very wrong to deal with it based on what is happening today. It's very important to always put it into context. This issue is one of those issues in the world where you listen to one side, you think the other side is evil. And you listen to the other side and you think that, no, that one is evil. So perhaps one needs to sit down and take time to understand the full context of it. And you understand, and I say this with a sense of humility, but with great conviction. But this is a collection of human flaws, of human errors, where ego principle trumps the value of life. It's our inability to see the next person, not even as a brother, but a fellow human being. I don't go for hyperbole to say, see the next person. It doesn't have to be my brother, but just to see that this is part of the same humanity. And I think that is what is lacking. The issue that happened a year ago, it's important to link it to technology and awareness. Because of the way information travels, what happened last year became everybody's business. The truth is, people have been in that situation for a very long time. Then it turned out that one person is a monster, killing babies and killing this, and the other one is a vindictive, retaliating, and the story goes. I would say, and allow me to say this, a not very popular opinion, I think this issue has a long thread. The state of Israel has a flawed origin. It was something that was born out of superstition, nationalism, something barbaric, something that the Germans would call match power. But it's not the only state in the world that was born out of that. The idea that you just come and say, this land should belong to somebody else, if you simplify it that way, is a terrible thing. But there's also one thing that must be said, that after that flawed origin, the leaders of Palestine and Arab countries have committed a litany of errors that has not allowed peace to reign. And whoever wants peace has to be able to see these errors on both sides. Because there is an issue which is uncommon in the history of humanity. There is a group of people that want to extinguish another group of people, that say Israel must not exist. That is a strange thing. We should not pretend as if it's normal. It is not normal. I dare anybody to look at yourself and know that there are some people who believe you should not exist as a people. But by the same token, there's a generation, I think we're the fourth generation now, of people who have lived their life as displaced, out of where they're born. They've been refugees out of their life. So this is a very complex issue. And I stop there.
Thank you so much. Mukhtar, complex issue. Let me come to you. Immediate priorities is what I'd like us to talk about. In the wake of the recent events, what should be the top priority for both sides to pave the way for peace, e.g., security, territorial boundaries, rights of return and sovereignty, settlements, and of course, reduce violence and build trust?
Well, the reality is there are no black and white. Well, this is in black and white, so to speak. The conflict is raging on because one party has refused to respect the global consensus. We must return back to the United Nations Security Council resolution. These things must be brought to bear. The resolution speaks very clearly that there has to be a return to the pre-1967 border, i.e. that the state of Israel lives side by side the state of Palestine. That is what you had in the pre-1967 border, 23% of the land belonging to the Palestinians and then the rest of it belonging to the state of Israel. But it states clearly that East Jerusalem al-Quds becomes the capital of Palestine. This is one side of the resolution. And the second side says that the state of Israel, of course, and the state of Palestine must live side by side one another. This is what the King Abdullah peace process talked about. This is what it continued to hammer on. This is what the Oslo Accord has talked about. This is, of course, the Oslo Accord has a bit of an extension because the Palestinians were requesting for a halting of illegal settlements before any conversation will be had. This is what the Camp David Accord essentially talked about. This is what the Barack Obama peace process tried to talk about with the two-state solutions. So that is established until and unless there's a return to the global consensus. To have a sit down and look at Resolution 181 and 242, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. Until that is done, then this will continue to rage on. But besides that, here we are. Throughout history, and by history I'm talking about, I'm trying to limit it to the period of 1970, from the Balfour Declaration up till the period of the Nakba.
Yes.
What we have seen is a clear case of cease and fire. There has never been a ceasefire in Palestine. The Israelis have always seized and fired. This is what we have seen from that period up till today, until October 7 happened. And then the world began to rant around, they have kidnapped 1,200 people, which, by the way, has been contested over time. So for anybody to reduce this conversation to this time frame, which I have talked about, is rather simplistic. It is reductionist to the point of being outrightly criminal.
Thank you. Chief Fani Kayode, Israel will tell you that up until October 6th, there was a ceasefire.
Well, I doubt that the people of Gaza will accept that. And any civilized, educated person that knows what has been going on in the world over the last number of years would not accept that there was any reasonable rationale. You can't talk about a ceasefire when you've occupied somebody's territory. You can't talk about a ceasefire when you have turned Gaza into a concentration camp. Food, water, medicine, electricity, nothing can enter Gaza, could enter Gaza. This is pre-October 7th. Pre that time, for a number of years, Israel said for security reasons. They can't even breathe unless Israel says so. That is number one. I don't call that a ceasefire, I call it vicious occupation. Secondly, if you look at what they're doing in the West Bank, which His Excellency represents here today, they have terrorized the people of the West Bank, limited their movements, taken their land, violating every resolution of the United Nations, continued to expand through their settler program, and so on and so forth, and limited them. And I'm sorry to say this, Your Excellency, turned them into people that basically are also living under occupation to a certain degree. Now, that is what the people of Palestine have faced. Now, I have to say this, there is no sugarcoating on this issue. We came here to have a proper discussion.
Absolutely.
And I will feel free to tell you precisely how I feel about what is going on today. Because we're talking about the today. I could tell you the history.
Well, we talked about
Sure,
the yesterday.
we did.
Now
I can tell you the history, and it's a long history, complicated history. I was somebody that was always in support of the state of Israel because that's what I was taught as a Christian and as a believer. Until October. No. Oh, really? There you haven't been following my write-ups. There you haven't been following my write-ups. But I've realized that as a real believer, as a real Christian, you cannot accept, post-October the 7th, you cannot possibly accept the barbarity that the state of Israel has imposed on the people of Gaza, and now also the people of the West Bank, people of Lebanon, and also the people of Syria. And they're intending to do that by expanding the territory and create a greater Israel. Now, let me just quickly round up. The problem here is that the time, we have such a time. I'm going to go to... Let me say this. Please indulge me, because really I would not feel too good if I don't get to it. We have a gentleman sitting here. 30 members of his family were slaughtered in the last few weeks. This is Abu Ramzi. 30 members of his, and I have many, many friends in Palestine. I talk to them every day, and that's why I write widely about this issue. Many people have been affected. It's about humanity. It's not about religion. It's not about anything but humanity. You will indulge me to just share this very small clip with you. It's something I want to read.
How long is it going to take?
Very, very quick. It's just a couple of paragraphs. Now, I'm going to read this because it encapsulates everything that I feel about the state of Israel as at today, not the history, about what they're doing to human beings today. And I think everybody should have an understanding. It's just a little clip from an essay I wrote recently called Who is This Israel? And I'll start by saying this. This is what it says. In view of its racist laws and disposition and the monumental carnage and horror that it has visited on the innocent and defenseless women and children of Gaza, the West Bank and Lebanon over the last 1 year, And given the heinous crimes that it has subjected the Palestinians to over the last 76 years, the Israel of today can best be described as a vicious, bestial, and callous ethno-supremacist, fascist, and apartheid state that has no right to exist. It is also a citadel of religious bigotry and extremism, and a repugnant and repulsive repository and sewer of the most insidious and vicious form of Zionist propaganda and Jewish proselytation. Excuse me, Ireti, I've almost finished. It is an evil and genocidal entity whose intention is to eliminate and eradicate every single Arab man, woman, and child in the Arab Gulf and all the nations and territories that exist between Egypt and Iran and forcefully occupy their land. Finally, if Nazi Germany, this is very important, if Nazi Germany forfeited the right to exist as a consequence of the Holocaust perpetuated against the Jews before and during World War II, why should Israel not forfeit the same right for doing precisely the same thing to the Palestinians 80 years later? I say this with every sense of responsibility. I was against the Holocaust in Germany. It is a despicable act. I'm against today's Holocaust, against the people, the women and children of Gaza and the West Bank and the Middle East that the Israel today is now perpetuating against. And I think every right-thinking person should look at this from that perspective.
Thank you, Chief FFK. I'm going to go to our specialist on my left. Does anybody want to make a comment? Would you like to make a comment, Rabbi? No? Pardon?
He's learning.
You're learning. My brother at the end, would you like to make a comment? Kindly tell us your name and... yeah, take the mic. Take the mic. I need you to speak to the mic, please.
Okay, my name is Calvin from Czech Republic. I'm a humanitarian person. And then I'm happy to be here with my friend, Professor Mukhtar. In my own opinion, I think the world is big enough. Humans should coexist. I mean, we should appreciate each other, irrespective of where we came from or who we are. So I think for now, this is what I can say. And then I also say that whoever have a support or a help to render to Palestine should come on board. I think it's the time to show humanity love. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your Excellency, we're about to go on break in about 60 seconds or so, but if I could get you to just kind of start. It's been quite passionate, especially given you're sitting next to possibly one of the most passionate debaters we have in Nigeria. I'd like you to talk to us, to take us to that point of humanity, which is the part that I call it. When I said, permit me to just put my glasses on, the immediate priorities in the wake of recent events, what should those priorities be for Palestine? Are we ready to go on break? Okay, go ahead. Sir, if you could start. I may interrupt you because we've got to go on a quick break.
No worry. Just because we should differentiate between ceasefire and stop the Israeli-American war. Ceasefire means that there is two armies fighting against each other, which is completely not true. There is a United States of America, Israel, and some other Western country war on Gaza, not in Gaza. Wording have a meaning so that if there is a priority right now, we should all, as a human being, raise our voice, and this is not in favor of Palestine, this is in favor of our future in the South in particular, and our collective future, of course, as a human being, to raise our voice and to say only one word. America and Israel and some other Western countries should stop now and forever the war on Gaza, the war against the Palestinian people. This is very important, and this is the most important. But to talk about the humanitarian aid and all of this stuff, I can assure you, this will not help. This is just to throw ash on the eyes. As His Excellency mentioned, we have here Ramzi Abu Safiyyeh, he's my distinguished brother. Part of his family was completely exterminated, was completely eliminated. Just a few days ago, his cousin Hussam Dr. Hussam Abu Safiyyeh, his son, he was praying in front of his son to bury his son. Could you imagine someone doing issue like this? I took him because I did not want to talk about my personal examples. I'm from Gaza, I'm a refugee. I'm from a refugee camp from Gaza, and my family is there, and I can assure you, all of the place the entire place that I was born and raised on it was completely on the ground now.
Okay, thank you. We have to go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to the Borderlines debate. My name is Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. I have one of our panelists who is joining us via Zoom, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Sir, can you hear me? Ambassador Keshi, I can see you, but I can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you. I can't hear him. Okay, whilst they sort that out, one of our special guests here is Mr. Najim Animashao. Mr. Animashao. I'd like to take some comments from you regarding what you've heard so far from the panelists on stage, and what are your thoughts? The mic is coming to you.
History is what really interests me. And I think the history really falls down onto the two sides of the narrative. But what I'm more interested in about the history are the actors and the players and their motivations at the time. We have to realize that this was at the end of the First World War. The Balfour Declaration was at the end of the First World War in 1917. And I've always asked myself a counterfactual. What if the Ottoman Empire was on the victorious side? Right? Now, the reason why I ask that is that the Ottoman Sultan at one point in time had considered creating a province for the Jewish people. So these are relationships that have been going on, as His Excellency has said, for a long time. In fact, one of the things that also interests me was that when the Germans in the Second World War, and I'll come back to the First World War in a minute, when the Germans in the Second World War, right, occupied France, that meant they also occupied all French colonies, which included North Africa. And one of the things that the collaborationist government in France did was to issue an order for all their provinces in North Africa to send their Jews to concentration camps in Europe. And the king of Morocco, King Mohammed V, wrote back to the French Vichy government and said, there are no Jews in Morocco, there are only Moroccans. Daring them to come and take the Jewish people from Morocco. So I was recently in Casablanca and Tangier, and I was also recently in Marrakesh. And in each of those cities, there's a strong Jewish presence. It's historic. I mean, it's historic. They were there throughout. And my partner, my business partner, when I asked him, he said, look, all of us have a Jewish ancestor somewhere along the line. We're Berbers, but we all have Jewish ancestors somewhere along the line. We are Muslims. And this is the same as the Palestinians. So for me, the question really is, since the test for being a Jew is matrilineal, if you have a maternal link to the DNA of Jewish people, then by definition, you should be a citizen of the State of Israel. Not that you shouldn't ask for a Palestinian state, but what it shows is that the coexistence that existed for 2,000 years was something that was already there. Now, this was disrupted by Europeans and also disrupted by the fact that when the British took over the mandate, right, after the Second World War, they were facing terrorism both from Jewish nationalists and from Palestinians, right? And they were dealing with rapid decolonization at the time. They had bigger fish to fry. India was getting independence. Pakistan was getting independence. There was agitation for independence in Africa. So, and they'd just been completely decimated by the Second World War. They were broke. And they had to now face the Cold War with the Berlin airlift, which was occurring at the same time as the declaration of the State of Israel. So while we keep blaming the British for it, we should look at all the historical processes operating at that time. And also, we cannot excuse the Gulf monarchies for their contribution to it. They rose up and rebelled against the Ottoman Empire with the British, right? In response for the British promising them their own land or their own countries. And the British had basically promised the same land to a lot of different people, right? And so, you know, the people there are living with the legacy of historical processes that some of it was intentional, some of it was not intentional. Some of it was as a result of mistakes made by Arab leaders. Some of it was as a result of in the case of Jewish people, who didn't want to Many Jewish people didn't want to come to Israel early on. It was after the Holocaust that you now saw the impetus, because most Jewish people in Europe thought that Zionism was a crackpot idea when it first came out. In fact, Montagu, who was a minister in the British government at the time of the Balfour Declaration, was the only Jew in the government. He opposed the Balfour Declaration. He said, I cannot support it because you're saying me as a Jew, British Jew, is the same as an Arab Jew. By virtue of the fact that we share the same religion, it's like saying a Frenchman and an Englishman who are both Christians are the same. So there are many fluid processes. It's easy for us to get all wrapped up in this, in the emotion of it. But the historical processes are very interesting to look at, and the mistakes made on both sides. And I'll end with this, because like everybody else, I try to look at things from both sides. And what I believe when it came to October 7th was another confluence of different historical processes. The first process, of course, was the desire of the West, right? In this case, the Trump administration, to try and secure the Abraham Accords. But they linked the Abraham Accords to trying to contain China, so that they had an India, Saudi Arabia, Israel agreement, which was predicated on Saudi Arabia and Israel normalizing relations, right? And if they normalize relations, then the Palestinian issue is no longer an issue. At the same time, Israel had enacted various laws that basically excluded anybody who wasn't Jewish from being a citizen of Israel. So, and also, of course, the Arabs were now moving on from the Palestinian issue. So if you were a Palestinian, you were left with three options: expulsion, extermination, or subjugation. And the fourth option, rebellion. And they chose rebellion, right? And that was October the 7th. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad. I think we should be dispassionate in our analysis of what is going on.
Indeed. Thank you. Before you go, let me just, I think I can, Ambassador Keshi, can you hear me now? Ambassador Keshi, can you hear me? I can't see you. Can you hear me? I can't see you. Okay. Okay. Because of time issues, we're going to move along. Ramsey, I'm going to give you a minute. I did want to ask, because I know that Mr. Animashan wants to go. He made a statement which I want to interrogate for the sake of our audience, especially those at home. Can I do that before? Because I know he wants to go. Is that all right? Yeah, you can. Okay. All right. Mr. Animashan, I'm going to need you to put the mic closer to your mouth, please, so everybody can hear you. Here's what I want to ask you. You said you will hold the Gulf states responsible. I'm jumping here because you are about to leave, or because you need to leave. Why do you say that? What is it that you expect the Gulf states to have done, or what do you believe their responsibility is in this conflict?
Ramsey will tell you.
No, before I go to Ramsey, I would like you to, Mr. Animashan, I'd like you to tell me, and then I'm going to go to Ramsey, because you said you need to leave. And you need to put the mic closer.
In the Middle East, the Palestinians are like orphans.
We're not hearing.
They're like orphans in the Middle East, right? They are an unloved child born in an unloved season. Their struggle was born in an unloved season. So the Gulf states are quite happy to use the Palestinians as pawns. But the worst thing is, and somebody mentioned it earlier, and I think this is an important point, between 1948 and 1979, no Gulf state had a map that recognized Israel. The only state that recognized Israel in that milieu of the Middle East was Iran under the Shah. Right? So if you were an Israeli and Gulf maps do not feature Israel, you will feel very, very concerned. And you will internalize the fact that they want to kill you, especially after you had experienced a Holocaust. That is not to say that there weren't cynical polemics making use out of this and using it to demonize the Arabs and the Palestinians. But the fact of the matter is, if the Arabs were not able to address the suffering of the Palestinians in an equitable way, right, they should have also calibrated their responses, right, much earlier. Because Anwar Sadat, when he launched the 1973 war, did it essentially to get leverage on the Israelis to reach the Camp David peace accords. But the rest of the Arab world now joined in that fight, and OPEC put on an oil embargo, used oil as a weapon, and caused enormous dislocation of the world economy, right? Now, Egypt now negotiating a deal that Egypt left the Soviet space of influence and became an American ally, thus undermining the Arab solidarity that had been presented by the oil embargo, which was a tremendous shock to the Western system, right? So they have time and time again undermined the issues that would have propelled a negotiation with the Israelis. And finally, and this has to do now, right? Despite 40,000 people being killed, every single Arab state that has had a treaty with Israel still has a treaty with Israel.
Still has?
A treaty with Israel. Nobody has recalled their ambassador. South American countries have recalled their ambassadors, right? Nobody has recalled their ambassador. So where is the Arab solidarity? Even South Africa, that has filed the case against Israel in the ICJ, is supplying Israel with coal. Turkey, that lambasts Israel, is supplying Israel with oil. So if I was an Israeli, I would just look at...
Incidentally, so is Nigeria.
Well, so if I was an Israeli, I'd say, these people aren't serious. Right? They're not serious. They're not serious about the Palestinians. Right? Because in their own self-interests, right? In their own self-interest, they don't produce oil. Not much anyway. They don't produce coal.
Okay.
So my point is that before you put all the blame on the side of the Israelis, understand where they're coming from and why they see this as an existential threat.
Right.
Right? But also look at the other side and then try to see them from the perspective of the Israelis. If this is important to them, if it was really, really important to them, they would do these things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I must have quiet in the audience, please. You are disturbing the peace if you start talking. I can hear you. Right, Ramsey, I'm going to give you 3 minutes for your contributions. Kindly speak into the mic.
Thank you very much. I hope your 3 minutes will be enough. But before then, I will take my permission from my ambassador.
We have another guest waiting on Zoom, Professor Akintola.
I will take my permission from my ambassador first to say 1 or 2 things. All of you spoke about the beginning of the history, but there is a lacking area we have not spoken about, which is Zionists. The beginning of the Zionists, 1897, when Herzl called 300 members or 400 members around the world to create the Zionist society and give them the duty and the job to perform the state of Israel under the name of the Jews. Zionists and Jews. They want Zionists to be a capable world joined as a Jewish society. There is 2 different parts of a society. Zionist is a Zionist. When Biden came to Israel October 8 last year, he said, I am a Zionist. I came to protect Israel after October 7. So there is 2 different things. Herzl gave a duty to find out the state of Israel under the community of Jews. So who accept to be a Zionist, he can be an Israeli, and he can be a Christian, or he can be any other things. He is a member of that society which is creating the state of Israel. That point is very important in the history of forming the state of Israel in the land. That is one. The Jewish, it is the first community in the whole world taking visa in this world to enter Palestine at the time of the empire of Ottoman Empire. They were allowed by Abdel Hamid Thani
to enter the land of Palestine for 45 days as a visit to so-called holy places on their historical religion. So permit me to say this part, because this part is the most important part, has created the state of Israel later on. And you have continued the period of the British when they colonized and left and so on and so forth. The British left 45. The state of Israel was created 48. Balfour Promise, which is some 5 days back, as November 2nd, was given to them 1917, after the First World War. This is the first part I want to speak about.
Okay.
Second part, I want us to put a light. Today is 38 days of the genocide of the north part of Gaza, which I came from. The north part of Gaza today is only 300,000 left. They are refugees, dismissed, displaced, no security, no food, no aid, no hospital, no anything allowed to enter to that part of Gaza, which is Jabalia Camp, Beit Lahia, Mashru' Beit Lahia, Beit Hanun. These areas, we have to speak about it seriously. 300,000 people have been slaughtered. So many children are on the ground of the roads dying. Nobody is taking care of them or to bury them, because any movement, the helicopter will kill, or the tanks will touch. So this one, the human feeling has to be there. And I thank my ambassador. I am not the only one who sacrificed for this family. Every single family of the Palestinians have been touched. So many families have been banished from the register. They are not no more anywhere.
Okay.
Today, the whole family of Mabhouh, this afternoon, 19 of them are being killed.
Thank you.
Every single hour, you hear one family or the other is gone. Will that shade let Benjamin Netanyahu run away? He said he's fighting for the existence of Israel, because the state of Israel is false. If he cannot fight for the existence, means he's not the right person to be on that land.
Okay.
That land has an honor, and that honor has to be there. And so far, we are alive as Palestinians. We remain to fight till to get our liberty and freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rabbi, would you like to contribute at this point? I think, yes, certainly. You would need to put this.
I will tell you the truth.
Yes.
I'm not in the level of you guests.
That's all right. You can. I'm not on their level
very bad
either.
in the geopolitics.
So you and I are in the same boat.
I hope that my parents sent me in the right school. So I have my position. I have my what I know.
Yes, that's fine.
Let me just ask maybe two questions to your guest, my friend and the ambassador. I hear you. I hear you. We can feel, from your voice that you're feeling this very strongly. And you say about that today Gaza is like a prison, okay? That anything can come inside. I talk about before the 7th October. Let's take. My question: why? Will approve to live. It's not belong to us, it belongs to you. But now it belongs to you. But we are going to build a wall, big wall, so between me and you it will be everyone in his life. And because you want to come from there, we build another wall downstairs, so everyone you have his own life, okay? Why they will give so much restriction? Did you think about it?
I have a very good answer. When you're ready, I'll give it to you.
Okay, I will tell you what island. You will tell me.
What I'm going to do is I need you to write that down before I go to Q&A. Okay.
I will tell you what island, and you will tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
When you give authority to some, You tell me. And those people, because the education, I don't know where it's coming from, decide that now that we have some authority, is a good time to create an organization that...
Occupying their land.
One minute.
Okay, so before we go into this debate...
no, let me just tell me.
Chief
you will tell me.
Chief FFK. So I think I need to let him finish, please, if you permit me. Go ahead, sir.
So they will decide that it's a time now to mobilize all the resources, the help from the world, the help from Europe, the help from Qatar, and to create an ideology that we are going to go back after this war and to kill. What else you can do? Okay, I understand there's a lot of more issue with the other piece of land and with the state that is supposed to come in. But what else you can do? What if now a state of Nigeria decide that they want to make terror against other population? What else you can do to close anything? And why only against Israel and not against Egypt? They have the same restriction, completely same restriction. Nothing, jail. You're right. So I'm very in full compassion of the north of the south of Gaza, but when I want to think, what else you can do? Tell me, teach me. Okay, I'm not sure we're going to have a...
No, I'll come back to that. Thank you so much, Rabbi, because I think, it was important for me to get that perspective from, an Israeli person. That's fine. He will answer you. I have Professor Akintola. I know your friends. I know.
I want to ask also to Ambassador one question also.
Pardon?
After we'd like to ask another question.
Yes, I've got Professor Akintola. Is he ready? Is Professor Akintola ready? Can I beg your pardon? Okay, let's bring him on, please. I have him join in by Zoom. Sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? I can't see you.
Yeah. Loud and clear, I can hear you.
Zoom and I can't see him. We cannot hear him. Yeah, but nobody can hear him in the studio. Okay. I don't know what's going on with the Zoom today. The panel cannot hear him. Can you hear him? No, the panel cannot hear him. The live audience can't hear him. So I need him to be... Right, sir, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Okay, so I don't know whether you've been listening. I can see you now, sir. I don't know whether you've been listening to the debate and if you have anything that you'd like to add to it. Because we're about to move on to the final hour of the show. You're speaking, but we can see your mouth moving. We can't hear you. Production, can you please do something about this? Nobody can hear him in this studio, not even the panel. Okay, all right, they're returning to us again. I don't know, sorry about that, people. We keep having technical issues, gremlins. Ambassador, I want you, did you hear what I know. I haven't spoken to the ambassador for a while. Ambassador, did you hear the question? Okay, would you like to contribute? I'm going to give you 2 minutes, right? So 2 minutes, because we're running out of time, and I still have some really, salient questions.
No, there is many issues to talk about it, but since it
we have a break in 1 minute, did you say? Okay.
Yes, there is many issues to talk about it when it came to the... because he shed light a bit on the history and about this issue. I'm a fan of the issue of the history. And again, without knowing, who did not know from where is he's coming, he did not know where is he heading. So that the history is very important. And even if I want to go back to say that this is the promised land and this is the Jewish land, I have no problem in that. This is the promised land for Abraham. Abraham himself, when he became that, the God gave him the promise 3 times, even before he had his first son Ishmael, and before the other son, of course, Ishaq, which he had after 13 years after he had Ishaq himself. If this is the case, and this is the promised land for Abraham and his descendant, according to the Torah, Part of the Arab is descendant of Abraham. If this is the case, I have no problem. You want to eliminate and to take Abraham, Ishaq outside, Ishaq and his descendant outside, even I have no problem. This is the Jewish land. You want me to go with this? I have no problem even to the descendant, but not the believers, because the majority of the Israeli today is believers of Jewish, of course, have no problem, but believers, they converted to Judaism 1100 years ago. The African Jewish today is converted at the 5th century. Whom came from Africa, I mean Ethiopia, they converted to Judaism, not a descendant. And if it is the land of the descendant, I have no problem also, because many of our extended family, the Palestinian family, Christians and Muslims today, is originally Hebrews. And this is the issue that was proven in the Israeli laboratory when it came to the DNA itself. So that again, history is very important, but this is not related to the history, right? This is related to the might, which is creating the light, and this is what is happening right now.
Thank you very much. Chief FFK, I'll come to you immediately after the break. We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Borderlines debate. I hope you are following us on Twitter. Hashtag BLDebate2024. We'd like to get your comments and we will be taking your questions. Right. Chief FFK, the rabbi asked you a question. I know you need more time. You'd like more time. Okay, I'm going to be generous. 2.5 minutes. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Is that a deal? Because I know you like to negotiate as a lawyer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The Jew asked a question, what do we expect them to do? Or what else can they do other than what they're doing? The question is, the answer is very, very simple. The first thing you need to do is this idea that the butchery of women and children, 50,000 or so, that's what we know about, have been slaughtered already. That should be a no-no. That's the starting point. That killing innocent civilians is not the way forward and will not bring peace, number one. Number two, going back a bit, before the genocide we're seeing today in Gaza, what should we have done? What do we do, is what he asked me. Well, the first thing you need to do as a nation and as a state is accept the idea that all human beings, regardless of your faith, regardless of your religion, regardless of your ethnicity, are equal. You don't call yourselves the master race, God's chosen people, with God's chosen faith, that have the divine right to suppress the rights of others, displace others, occupy their land, and kill them at will. That's, I would suggest, is one of the things you need to do. Another thing you need to do is get a decent set of leaders in your country. Why do I say this? You had a man, Yitzhak Rabin, a very good man. I think he was the leader of the Labour Party in Israel, who ensured there was peace with Egypt and tried to build bridges of peace with the Middle East and stop the wars and stop the occupation and stop the killing. But what happened to him? A protege of Benjamin Netanyahu, your present prime minister, killed him because he wanted to make peace with everyone. So get rid of this idea that you are the master race, which is what the Nazis used to call it. You're not. You are just like anybody else, and the Palestinians have every right to what they believe is their homeland. What else can you do? Perhaps you should also consider the possibility of establishing the idea of a two-party solution, two-state solution to the crisis that you have today. 80% of Jewish people in the state of Israel today have rejected that and said no, they'd rather opt for this greater Israel concept. And what that means is to establish a state of Israel from the borders of Egypt right up onto Iran and take everything and everybody in it. That is their concept. 80% of the Israeli people believe in what people like Smotrich, the Minister of Finance, Gvir, the Minister of National Security, and a number of other ministers, and of course Bibi Netanyahu himself, who believe that Gaza should be nuked, who believe that the people of Gaza and the Palestinians should be distributed in 25 different countries at 25,000 people per country. I think you should get rid of that philosophy. If we want peace, what you need to do is look within yourselves and understand that as long as you slaughter innocent people, women and children at will, and give excuses to the world for doing so with impunity, people will rise up and say enough is enough. This has happened all over the world and throughout human history. You cannot win a conflict by slaughtering women and children.
Thank you.
That is what you need to do. That's a starting point. Plenty more. Stop torturing your prisoners. Stop taking human parts from the bodies of dead Palestinians.
Okay.
Stop involving yourself in so many things that are reprehensible. And listen to this. Final point, Ireti, is this. Perhaps you should consider abiding by the decision of the United Nations and the resolutions, abiding by international law, listening to what the ICJ has said, listening to what the ICC have said, and stop threatening ICC prosecutors with killing them simply because they don't agree and said you're committing homicide. Stop killing people that are against you and stop looking at yourselves as a master race. Just one quick final point. Look at this man. He's a good friend of mine. He's a Jew. He is a real Jew. The people that lead your country are not real Jews. They are people, Ashkenazi Jews, from Europe. These are white-skinned people who have come to colonize Israel and every Arab and every black person there. That is the truth. Ashkenazi Jew. Go and Google it. They are not real Jews. They are only Jewish by faith, but these white Europeans have come to your land, captured your land, and taken everybody prisoner in that place. And that must be resisted.
Thank you very much. Right. What I'm going to do now, because in the interest of time, Professor Killer, I have a question for you, and Professor Mukhtar Imam, I have a question for you. Where shall I start? Let me start from you, Professor Imam, because I seem to have had my back to you for far too long. Right, so let's talk about international influence. How do international interventions, political, financial, or military, affect the peace process? Do they facilitate progress or deepen the divide? Especially now that we have a Trump presidency. How do you envisage things to change? 2 minutes. We have no more time.
All right, then.
And I'm being strict now.
Right, that's fine. So very quickly, I think it's always important to contextualize issues. And then when we have conversation around history, the reason why I started by saying the history of the Middle East cannot be rewritten from the perspective of the victors or those who have triumphed today, quote and unquote, is that whenever conversations around the Middle East, of course, however emotional this conversation appears to be, which it should be, like the Honorable Minister has mentioned, we must understand that using nuances and trying to, be hypothetical with conversation is not helping. It will not help. Talking about Sharif Hussein and what had happened and the First World War, what if the Ottoman had won? It's not helping the conversation. Coming to the Gulf states, I'll come to your question with 1 minute. Coming to the Gulf state, there's a lot of blame to go around, a lot of blame as far as that is concerned. But the position of Anwar Sadat, for example, like he tried to portray, was absolutely misplaced. That's wrong. If Anwar was here today, I am sure he will not take that. And that's the reality, because we all saw what happened after the war. That wasn't him trying to cozy up to the United States. Absolutely not. That's absolutely, completely false. It's a fallacy. But again, of course, we don't have to go into all of that. Now, the Gulf states...
We would have.
Yeah, of course, but because of time, in the interest of, I would love to delve into it to make you understand why the people of Egypt decided to raise Anwar up and say, come back, we want you. Because the ordinary Egyptian on the streets, and again, this is where we must contextualize. The elites are an absolutely different group of people from what the ordinary people, look what the ordinary people in Egypt did to Anwar, because they saw the belief. They saw that it was clear that he was fighting for the cause of the Palestinian people. Severing ties with Israel and refusing OPEC, sending oil to the United States, which is exactly what led John Perkins and the others to do the things that they did in the Middle East, which is part of the reason why we're seeing the crisis deepen in the Middle East, is of course not a justification for anybody to say Israelis should continue to butcher children, 20,000 or 30,000 of them. It's not a helpful conversation. We all want to be subtle. We are all diplomats. We want to be subtle, but it doesn't help. But I haven't answered the question yet. Sending arms to the Middle East, sending arms to the Middle East is not helpful. You're rather funneling, you're putting monies in the hands of this war profiteers and war merchants. That's all you're doing. And at the end of the day, the ordinary child in Palestine will suffer. And guess what? This is going to create a vicious circle. An ordinary 5-year-old child in Palestine sees a bomb, and what is written on it is US. You expect him that in the next 20 years, he's going to hold the hand of an American and say, let's walk down the street and sing, we shall overcome? It will not work. So we will be creating more Yahya Sinwar who will agitate and revolt, because that's the only option that has been left for them.
Thank you. Right. Why is it that as things are getting interesting, we run out of time? But Professor Killer, I have to come to you. Let's talk about leadership. How have recent actions by current leaders affected the prospect for peace or exacerbated conflict? Of course.
He did not allow me to speak to Trump.
Yeah, he didn't get to answer the Trump.
That's not fair.
I will try to come to you. I'm going to ask you to actually fit in the new American President Trump administration.
Well,
2 minutes.
Well, let me start from the Trump issue. The peculiarity of the problem with Donald Trump is that he's unpredictable. Logically, you'll expect him to act in a very pro-Israel way. You know, he believes in garbage and trash and some people should not exist. But he said that. But those who have distance profile Donald Trump will know that he might not do any of those things. So, you know, that's one thing about him. So Donald Trump is a very peculiar kind of personality, politician, persona, and person. He's not the kind of person you can predict and build models on, as it were. He's just a case of Gamaliel. Let's wait and see what happens with him. But in terms of leadership generally, I think one thing that we should see, very importantly, is that there seems something going on in the world, and I've been saying this for over 20 years. Somehow, people of good hearts with no power support the Palestinians. People with power do not support them.
And not good hearts.
Well, no, I leave the heart out. I leave the heart out. But you see, I say these things, those who know me know I'm not a moralist. And, but I think it's a food for thought for Palestinians and afraid of Palestine to say strategically, how do we manage this situation? How come every politician swears that they're friends of Israel? There's no point saying they're evil people. I think the real thing is to go and think, what do we need to do differently? And when we say, what should Israel do differently, perhaps we need to start saying, what should Saudi Arabia do differently? Yes. Perhaps we need to start looking what other people need to do differently. But above all, and here, I'm going to stop soon because I'm about to say something that is not very popular.
As usual.
I believe that life trumps principles. I believe that life trumps ego. I believe that at some point, a new leadership from Israel and Palestine needs to come up to say, regardless of who is right, nobody dies again. Absolutely. I believe that's the way forward. To come up and say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't want this child in front of me to die. Because, you see, we talk of heroes, we talk of martyrs. We don't think of orphans and widows and broken lives. That, for me, is my humanism.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Your Excellency, you would like, I'm going to give, I did have another question for you, though, and they're already telling me we only have 10 minutes left. So 1 minute to respond. I think you want to add to that.
Yes, of course.
Right, 1 minute, and then I will ask you my question.
Just one issue. Yes, we are a human being. The God created us different. No one of us choose his religion at all, his color, his race. This is something out of the issue is we failed. Today, the international community failed to raise the noble slogan or the noble promise, which is never again. We failed it. We failed it. After the Holocaust and the Second World War, we raised this promise. Never again. Today, the international community, because again, we should put our hand directly to that. We should point at it. Because the American, the American people, of course, the American administration, this man who's leading America, Biden and his group, yes, we should not hesitate to say that this is an American war against the Palestinian people. Israel dropped 85,000 tons on Gaza. Exceeded more all the bombs that used in the Second World War. This is very important. This is very important issue to raise it. This cannot be happened without the full participation, not complicity, participation of the American and some other Western countries.
Okay, well, look, when we finish the live broadcast, we will be continuing on YouTube for another 30, 45 minutes. So I'm going to come to the audience now. Does anybody have a question or comment? The lady at the back, please. Can you just introduce yourself and then give us your comment or your question? Thank you. Okay.
Almost.
Oh, would you be able to raise up your voice?
Yeah, so she looks like.
Yes.
You're talking about releasing them.
Okay, can you talk into that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so who is Hamas? What is their role? Are they a terrorist or a political organization?
Okay.
Then Hezbollah throwing bombs from Lebanon. He talked about stop giving weapons to the Middle East. Iran is funding Hezbollah. So I want to know, what is the role of Hamas?
Okay.
How should Israel deal with Hamas?
Okay.
Would Israel still be alive if they were complacent? Quote and unquote, they are surrounded around enemies.
Thank you.
Should they be relaxed?
Thank you very much. Do I have another? Do you want to answer that?
Yes, directly.
Right, but I must, don't worry, there's no need to rush. We will continue live on YouTube. So if you're watching us at home, as of the time when we close, when we end the show on TV, on radio, please go to Nigeria Info FM YouTube channel. We will continue our live discussion there. Right, Ambassador, if you'd like to answer that 1 minute, so I can go.
Since the beginning of the last escalation, Israeli escalation, because the war is already there, 1917, November 2nd, 1917, we had more than one school of thought. But the main two school of thought is the Israeli or the Zionist school of thought, which is they are trying to convince us that history start only in October 7th.
But
you should not. But this is very important. Yeah, I'm coming because this is another, with all due respect, of course, to her, she's representing, or at least she's convinced by this school of thought. And there is the rational school of thought that we are saying that we should take the issue on the, and it is historical background and historical incubator. No one, I'm pretty sure you did not know that, and all of you did not know that, in October 6th alone, 6 Palestinians was slain. This is very important since the beginning of 2023 till October 6th, Friday, October 6th, 152 Palestinians was killed. One of them, I know his father and his family, is Muhammad al-Tamimi, 2.5 years old. He sniped for fun. Could you imagine? This is very important. This is the school of thought that is talking about history, incubator, and all of this stuff. But again, I will continue to say, because this is the international law, this is not mine. When even in the war, there is a principle in the international law called proportionality. It's very important. Allow me, because it's very important.
Well, I need to say, you haven't answered the question of Hamas.
Yes, Hamas started it in October 7th. This is fact. No one should deny it. October 7th is fact. But October 7th became the Trojan horse to expel, to continue the Nakba that Palestinian people endure. You talked about 1,200 Israeli killed, and I can assure you, but who killed the 1,200? We need another part to investigate. The Palestinian fighter. Please, it's very important. The Palestinian fighter, and they already show it to us, killed many Israeli soldiers. But did anyone can come with one video that they killed any single citizen? They killed the majority of them. This is our claim, of course, and Israel have the right to claim that the Palestinian killed 1,200. But our claim that they used already the Hannibal doctrine, which means that kill everyone so that you get rid of everyone. Who's gonna tell how many Palestinians? We need the third party inquiry commission or the United Nations investigation committee to come and to investigate what happened in October 7th, before October 7th, and after October 7th. And again, anyone conducted a war crime should be held accountable. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Wow. Like I said, we are not ending, but if you are watching us at home, if you are listening to us on the radio, this is the end of your broadcast, okay? Thank you so much for joining us on the maiden edition of the Borderlines debate. This has never been done in Nigeria before. This is the first debate that is solely focused not just on the Middle East crisis, but on foreign policy and geopolitics. And the focus of Borderlines is to continue to pivot the voices of the global South and ensure that we are part of the conversation that's going on globally. Indeed, Nigeria is not a silo. Right, we'll be right back after this break. Go to YouTube, Nigeria Info YouTube. Everybody is still here. Don't worry, I've tied them down. They're not going anywhere. Right? They're not going anywhere. Stay with us. Yes, stay with us. I must say, finally, it is a huge disappointment that we moved this dialogue twice, not once, but twice, to accommodate His Excellency Michael Freeman, who is the Israeli representative, the ambassador in Nigeria. It is extremely disappointing that we wrote and wrote and wrote, and I know my producer went to see him personally to allay his fears and also to let him know that this is an open debate for everybody. It is most disappointing that thankfully the rabbi was here, but of course an Israeli diplomat was not present. Most disappointing, because I think the Israeli people deserved to have representation on this stage. Like I said, I've got to go. They're telling me to go to YouTube. Join us, Nigeria In for YouTube. In 5 minutes, we'll be right back. Thank you so very much to our partners, Radio Now, Voice of Africa, Plus TV, Liberty TV. I think it's also CTGN was carrying it. I think Palestinian TV was carrying it. Some Kenyan TV stations. Thank you all very, very much. Oh yes, my name, Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. See you on YouTube. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Borderlines debate. We're now live on YouTube. If you have been watching us, you would see that we ended on, how should I say, a very important question, because I've got to be neutral. You wanted to respond to the rest of the lady's question. I think,
yes,
yeah, there she is.
Yes.
And Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump as well. So just quickly, to shed light on some of the things she said.
Yeah.
I want to start on the note that I could tell from her countenance how very emotional she got when her questions were coming up. Reality is, this is an emotional conversation. I recall with nostalgia when I was conducting my MSc and PhD thesis, and my supervisor said to me, "You understand how emotional this is, right? I hope you're coming in prepared." So I quite understand the feeling around it. But you see, when we're having these conversations, we must intellectualize them. We must speak with facts and figures. First of all, you talked about, what happened on October 7th. Of course, let's assume that you want to start history from October 7th. That's okay. All right. Okay. So let's assume. Let's stick to October 7th. What happened on October 7th? It is condemnable. It is something that the entire world has condemned. But then again, of course, we cannot isolate October 7th. This is the reality of it. Hamas is a political movement in Palestine. It has always been there. The same pulse that every Palestinian feels is what the people of Hamas feel as well. And when the conversation around coming up with a consensus was first brought up, let's ignore all the other conversations around the peace process. The Oslo Accord. The Hamas came to the Oslo Accord with a request, or pre-Oslo Accord, with a request that 100% of their land, by the way, as has been mentioned here, when the Jews that they came to Palestine because they had been turned back from all other parts of Europe and every other part of the world. And so they came to that land and they were accepted, they were embraced, and they were brought in. They were embraced by the Palestinians on that land at that time. And so Hamas, or the configuration of Hamas, is frustrated with what is happening. And they said, we want 100% of our land back. This was their agitation ab initio. Over time, the global consensus came and said, look, you cannot have that. And the Oslo Accord came, and a representative of Hamas came to that table to sit, to say, we will accept 23% of the land. The rest of it can go to the state of Israel. We are ready to accept it, but on the condition that the erection of a legal settlement has to stop before any conversation can be had. But here we are, from that period up till today, this illegal settlement has continued to expand. Not only that, when you speak of casualty, the casualty that has been recorded on the side of Gaza, on the side of the people in the West Bank, and on the side of the people in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah is not just acting rashly out of, the madness of it or the hurry of things. They are acting in response to what has been happening to them. Read what happened in September of 2006 and how many people were butchered in the south of Lebanon. These are humans. You can't put logic to everything. People are emotional. Parents, children are being killed. Before that time, read the history of this place from 1948 up to 2023 and tell me how many times Palestine has been on the offensive. Tell me how many times Lebanon has been on the offensive. They have always been on the defensive. Including the reason why Nakba happened was because, what's Nakba? I'm sure the ambassador will tell you what Nakba is. People are resisting an occupation. People are being butchered. So when you go into history, you will understand why people will be frustrated. And that's the reason why I use the illustration of a child who is 5-year-old today, who has perhaps been decapitated, whose family has been wiped off the surface of earth. What becomes his fate in the nearest future? This isn't about religion. It is completely out of it. The geopolitics that has been talked about earlier played out exactly. And in the case of sending weapons, the reality is this. You must look at weapons within the context of the article of proportionality in war. This is not a war. War is where you have two parties with the same level of equipment confronting one another. This is an absolute genocide. And this is what the ICJ and every other party in the world has called it. To what was raised here about peace, forgive me please, about peace and all that, we again must understand, we've seen Palestinian ambassadors at the UN crying and weeping. How else do you want people to be emotional? What other kind of leadership do you want to come out of Palestine and say, please stop killing our children? We know the culprits. We know what is going on. Let's point fingers to them. Call a spade a spade. The Israelis have refused to stop butchering. Is it in the same proportion? And by the way, like Ambassador said, the figure is being contested. And again, of course, how the scenario that played out that led to the death of 1,200 or 200 is still being contested. Even on CNN, it's been contested. That figure hasn't come out straight. So, to Abraham Accord and Donald Trump has exhibited, of course, humans, as Lincoln famously said, if you think you have found predicting humans as a profession, then you have no job. We cannot predict Trump, particularly because the guy is as complex as they come. But the reality is this: he has set a precedent. Trump did not exhibit any element or iota of it, of trying to salvage this situation in his first term in office. The Abraham Accord was clearly an economic blueprint for Jared Kushner and his people to come to the Middle East and mop up resources. That was all it was about. We must call these things as they are. The man moved. Look, the global consensus is clear. Go and read the article of the United Nations Security Council. It says that Palestine takes 23% of the land, Israel takes the rest, but East Jerusalem al-Quds becomes the capital of Palestine. This man boldly and single-handedly declared or agreed to move the Israeli ambassador to Jerusalem. This goes contrary to the global consensus. So, for a person like that, I mean, how do you begin to hypothetically say he has some kind of plan for the Middle East? The man himself said it a few weeks ago. Benjamin Netanyahu should rush and finish.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, but I'm going to give you a minute because I've got people waiting. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, Trump, yes.
Yeah, on the issue of Trump.
Yeah.
I'm a great supporter of Trump, and this was from 2016, and I followed him, his trajectory.
Can we also tell you whether he knows you personally?
No.
But he didn't reply you.
Who? He replied me?
Yes.
Yeah,
on Twitter.
Yeah,
so
but I don't know him
personally.
personally.
He knows you personally.
Right. Okay.
He told me.
Oh, really?
Yes, we talked about it, but go ahead. Yes.
So I didn't know that. But I know he replied. But the issue is that since 2016, I've followed him closely. I believe in much of what he believes in. And I also share the same, I believe, Christian principles as he appears to share. And for me, my faith is everything, carried into everything. And that's precisely why I believe, perhaps like many other evangelical Christians, of which I am one, that resisting evil is the first thing about faith. You have to be able to stand up for the oppressed. Many do not have that view. That is entirely their problem. God will judge us all. But on Trump, my own view is this. I see him as somebody that does not want innocent blood to be shed. I see him as somebody that will ensure that the war in the Ukraine stops. I see him as somebody that can rein in the Israelis, perhaps the only person on earth that can look at Netanyahu and say, I remember what you did to me when I was in power the first time. I remember I see all you've done to these people. He won't say it publicly. Probably say, stop this nonsense. We cannot defend this. We cannot justify this. We're with you. We believe in you. We love you and we'll stand by you. But stop this nonsense. Because if you don't stop it, what's going to end up happening is that this thing could end to, first of all, American influence being diminished, and secondly, we're going to end up in a third world war, which ends the whole world in 72 seconds. He will not push that. So that's just my view about him. I have every faith that he will do the right thing, come out strongly, but he will not allow the genocide to continue. That's my view about Trump.
I will share your optimism.
Well, okay.
I'll hold you to it.
I need to go back.
Let's hope
Ramsey,
we're right. Yeah.
Can I go to the studio audience first? They have questions, or would you like to speak now? You'd like to speak now? Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Just as my ambassador says, Hannibal. Hannibal, it's a law in the Israeli occupation army. When attack comes to an area, which is October 7, near Gaza, we have 15 settlements, which settlers are living there, are farming near Gaza Strip, in the whole region. So when Hamas guys entered, they entered for a mission. They entered to a base, army base, 2000 base, which is the intelligence service, which is spying on the whole Middle East and other areas on the region. Along the way, the settlements, the houses. Hannibal start on that point after 4 hours of the attack of October 7. which is give the right to the Israeli army to bomb from the air or from the tank anywhere they suspect, whether there is Israelis or there is no Israelis. Once they think there is they call them enemy. We are enemy to them. You understand? Kill them with everybody exists, along with the Israeli settlers who are living in the settlements. That is why we as a Palestinians, we ask the whole world, give me evidence of Hamas kill Israeli civilians. You cannot find. That is one of the points.
No,
the second point I want to mention.
Hamas on October the 7th didn't kill any Israeli civilians.
Never.
But
they only
then I must ask you,
listen,
what
my
about
dear,
the children
they
at
only
the Noble Festival?
They only targeted Israeli soldiers. And all the Israeli soldiers was being captured as hostages, just for the return of our hostages under the Israeli prison.
But I have to ask
which we have today about 16,000 of the Palestinians, 10,000 from Gaza and 6,000 from the West Bank are still in the Israeli prisons as hostages. Some of them lived for 40 years in the prison. Nobody's speaking about them. Everybody's crying about the 100 remain.
Accepted. But I do have to ask you, when you say Hamas didn't kill any innocent Palestinians, I have to ask you, permit me please, permit me. There was a music festival.
Yes.
Permit me to finish please. Going on, full of young people.
Okay.
Thousands of young people. They were dancing, going on, right next to Gaza.
Fine.
Right? Several of those young people died. They were killed, not died.
They were killed by Hannibal Law.
Permit me.
They were killed by the Israelis.
No, but Ramsey, you have to let me finish and then you can answer. You can answer. Several of those young people were killed. Some of them were also kidnapped. So over to you now.
I have mentioned to you, Hannibal give the right to bomb anywhere they suspect a Palestinian if he's there. Within 100 Israelis, bomb the 100 with the Palestinian. So all the one was bombed, all the bodies was bombed and killed was being attacked by the Israeli soldiers.
Okay.
This is a definite.
Yeah, I will come.
This point is very important.
Yeah.
This is a definite. This is a definite. And once, in the first call, Benjamin Netanyahu called Biden and said they have raped and killed children and killed slaughter women. Find one picture of a child of the Israeli civilian who are the settlers just killed. Look, there are some videos. There are some videos of Hamasi members enter houses and find children and women, and they permit even to take water from their fridge. Do you understand what I said? This is one part I want to speak about.
I still have questions.
No, I still have the UN. UNRWA was banned. UNRWA was banned in Gaza and West Bank. UNRWA was created before Israel and before the United Nations. UNRWA was created when the 700 Palestinians slaughtered for a purpose to serve the refugee of Palestinians. 30,000 workers under UNRWA are Palestinians in the Middle East. Israel claim, Israel act, Israel do, without anybody come from the United Nations to find out.
Okay. I do have to move on. You've been, thank you. No, thank you so very much for that. Right, no, Your Excellency, I know you, but I'm only going to give you a minute because I've still got loads of questions.
Yeah, I agree with you,
Please.
but in this particular...
you can't go yet.
No, in this particular day, I start by saying October 7th is a fact. Whether we agree on it as a Palestinian Liberation Organization or we did not agree on it, it's a fact and no one can deny it. And we already, Hamas or the Palestinian fighter is showing us videos when they are fighting with the soldier, but they did not show us any single video about fighting or killing an innocent person. One of the witness, the Israeli witness, when they entered to her home, she told us in the media that they asked her permission to take a cup of water, not more than that. But anyhow, Israel and the current prime minister claimed a lot of false claims. Beheaded the babies, 40 babies that have been beheaded. Babies that burn alive on the ovens baked before their families. All of these, they have, and I used to say to the media, they have the full right to raise this claim. And we have the full right to raise our claim, not only on October 7th, October 6th, October 7th, October 8th, and to this day. The question is, who will be the one that judge our claims? We should, and we have experience, and there is an international law that we will continue to to uphold it and to abide by it. The international community represented by United Nations in particular, United Nations Human Rights Council should establish an inquiry committee to come to investigate what exactly happened in October 7th. And anyone conducted the war crime before October 7th, in October 7th, and after October 7th should be held accountable. Is it fair? The principle, we let us...
Of course, I get you.
Let us all the time to catch and
there
to say...
There must be an investigation.
No, there is a principle and we must go after or we must uphold the principles.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Right, I'll take question. Who is it? Please put your hand up so we can see you. Right, okay. So the gentleman here in the white, and then the gentleman there in the navy blue, Ankara. Go ahead, sir. Please, your name and your question.
My name is Muhammad Ibrahim Gamawa. I'm the chairman of Imam Mahdi Foundation. When my brother FKK told me that there is something like this, I was glad that maybe I'll come and see the Zionist ambassador and the Palestinian ambassador. I wanted to ask the two ambassadors of one country in court some questions. One question at least. I think maybe you are giving me only 2 minutes. Had it been I made
let's pretend the Israeli ambassador is here, right?
Okay, maybe you will listen to what I will say and the audience too will listen. Though I don't expect to get a definite answer from an ambassador. Anytime I want to know the meaning of an ambassador, I check what one of our finest ambassadors in person of Ibrahim Gambari said. He was asked what's the meaning of ambassador. He said an ambassador is hitherto a gentleman, an honest person who have been sent abroad to go and lie on behalf of his country. So your question. Now, I would have asked the Israeli ambassador, how does he feel whenever he sees children?
How does he feel?
Whenever you see on TV, on screen, that children are being decapitated, women displaced, how does he feel as a human being? Though I know he's a Zionist, he may not feel the way I'm feeling. Now, to my brother, the Palestinian ambassador, the problem in Palestine, I think to me, as an analyst, 40% of what caused the problem is the internal misunderstanding between Fatah and Hamas. Your Excellency, you people have to put your home in order. Leave the Arab leaders. The Arab leaders, most of them are children of the Israelites, if you go back to history. But the masses are the Palestinians, any day, any time. So, sir, what is Hamas that is known officially in the UN to representing the entire Palestinians? What are you doing with the present irresponsible massacre of Palestinians by the Zionists? What are you doing now to bring yourself together, you and Hamas? I know you have difference in ideologies. You people are not approaching this matter religiously. Hamas is approaching it religiously. I mean that you people are secular, they are religious. But yet there is a point where you people can meet and get yourself freed. Forget about the Arab leaders. They will not do what those who support you or what you want them to do. But time shall come when they will be forced out of those palaces they are occupying, so that you will have your freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Given that, okay, the other question, the gentleman over there. Do I have Khalid Alawade in the audience? That's you. Right, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Please, I need you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Khalid Alawade. So I have a few questions. First of all,
A few, did you say?
Just two questions.
Okay.
Just two questions and a comment within 2 minutes. So first of all, the Chief Rabbi ended with the question that why Israel actually limits the freedom of the Palestinians, same as Egypt. Do we ask that question? Why is there similarities? I think Egypt has the right to place limitation on Palestinians because they are Palestinians, but the Israel don't have any right at all.
I need you to speak into
the Israelites don't have any right at all to do that because of what? They are on their land, you understand? So you cannot place restriction on somebody that is actually
okay, so that's a comment.
So that's number one.
Mic.
So number two.
Better, can you see the difference?
Yes. Number two is that, who is Hamas? I think we need to remember that at a point in time, Hamas was an elected representative in Gaza, you understand? And Ismail Haniyeh, that was assassinated recently, was the prime minister of Hamas, you understand? That is, they were elected representatives. And after the October 1st, 67% of Gaza's population also agreed to what Hamas did. You understand? And when people come out to vilify Hamas or to criticize Hamas, I think we don't have any right, since the 67% of people actually you understand, they still want Hamas there. Now, the problem Israel have with Hamas has to do with a documentary I watched on Al Jazeera about the Oslo Accord. One of the representatives of the would say something of representing the Israel, said he asked the PLO representative 100 questions. He wasn't surprised he got the answers for all the 100 questions he asked. What he was surprised about is the fact that he didn't get any question in return. I get this. So the problem with Israel as with Hamas is that they are uncompromising compared to the what? To the other, you understand? Yes. So that is actually what some of the misconceptions people think about Hamas, you understand? So that's actually a few things I want to see.
Thank you very much. Right, I'll come back to you, all of you, with questions. Ambassador, the gentleman in front asked you a question.
Thank you so much indeed.
It is time for Palestine to get its house in order. Fatah and Hamas.
No,
what's the way forward?
Yes, you are absolutely 100% right. I'm totally agree with you. We have our own challenge as a Palestinians. This is very important. But again, Hamas is not taking it from a religious perspective or us not a religious. No, Hamas take it from again, to some extent, yes, there is a religious effect, but by the end of the day, this is a pure political issue, so that Hamas itself, on the mouth of al-marhum, the one who was passed away, Ismail Haniyeh, was, and Mash'al himself was accepting to build the state of Palestine in the 67 border. But again, yes, I agree with you. We have our own challenges as a Palestinian. This is very important issue, and we should concentrate more time, and we should pay more effort as a Palestinian, entire Palestinian, to reunite it. But the question is, who fed this division? This is very important question, and this is what the Israeli themselves used to say it and continue to say it. We should continue feeding Gaza, Hamas in Gaza before October 7, to make sure that they will not back to be united. And of course, there is another players in the region who is feeding Hamas not to be united with the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This is at least as a representative of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This is our point of view. You're gonna find again another complete different point of view from the supporter of Hamas, with all due respect, of course. This is very important, but what you mentioned is very important. Yes, we have a homework and we should accomplish it. Yes, part of the problem came from our side, but this is not that. When it came to the current genocide, to the current American-Israeli genocide, we should put it aside, because even President Abbas or anyone of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, we will not remove the political cover from any Palestinian, whether we are in agreement with them or we are not in a political agreement with them. Whether we are agreeing on what happened on October 7th or against it, it happened. There is something happened, but we will not remove the cover because we cannot accept it as an excuse to the current genocide. Once we remove it, and we will not remove it, for sure, we will not remove this political cover, they will take it as excuse to eliminate, to completely annihilate the Palestinian people. Okay. Again, we have some issue to do it, but it's time, of course, but the main issue that we should, as international community, to focus on it is the ongoing televised genocide, American-Israeli genocide.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Professor Killer after the break. We're going to take a quick break. If you have a question in the audience, please put your hands up so the mic can be brought to you. We're going into the final 10, 15 minutes, all right? Okay, we'll be right back after this break. Thank you.